Has there ever, I know that you were involved in the three cases that stand out, or obviously the bombings in Ireland is huge, but you were also involved in Princess Diana's case?
Yes.
What happened there?
She got killed.
I know, but was there blood that went missing? Did I read that right?
There's it's a curious case altogether. And the problem with curious cases is they allow anybody to say anything.
Yeah.
So conspiracy theories abound and all the rest of it. So the first issue was a wee bit like the Scottish thing. It wasn't a criminal inquiry, and the French labs just refused to give us anything. But so my role was to look at the toxicology and the DNA. So because in one blood sample they had, I think it was 23 or 25% carbon monoxide. That's the kind of levels you get in a fire, and there was no fire or heavy smoking, but there was video showing he wasn't smoking. So the question was, well, why is that? And I think I got called out because the previous people looking at it got confused with something called post-mortem drug redistribution. What that is when somebody dies, if there's drugs in the blood, they start to move out of the blood and distribute themselves in different tissues. Right? Okay. And it used to be that when you were doing a post-mortem, the body's on its back, the blood goes to the bottom along your spine, basically, and you just scoop up the blood. But it turns out that didn't give you a fair reflection of the drugs in the blood because of this post-mortem drug redistribution. So others had said, well, it's just post-mortem drug redistribution, except carbon monoxide's a gas, right? And so there's no way that this could be responsible for it, and it certainly wasn't in the atmosphere in the mortuary. And so that raised in me the issues, well, whose blood is it, right? And of course we had tissues from Henri Paul. This is the driver, Henri Paul. And I asked then if we could get some of these tissues to do DNA and match it to the sample. And magically all those tissues had disappeared, which is weird because the police had photographed these in boxes. Every box except the one that I wanted, right? I only found this out at the inquest when it was a coroner, I can't remember. They said, yeah, well, unfortunately, that box seems to have disappeared. So when you do that, it just raises questions, you know. Yeah. It's back to the SPA. You might be doing nothing wrong, but it does raise a question.
Do you think something was being covered?
See, you're looking for me to attribute motivation. That's not my thing.
Well, I see these cases similar to this one. There's tons of theories out there. Taking any bias away from it, some of the stuff that happened is just bizarre. And then you look at the Jeffrey Epstein case. I mean, the guy that did the post-mortem on him said, I've never seen a neck break like this from someone that's committed suicide. He didn't commit suicide, and then the CCTV camera switched off. The guard happened to be on duty. There's just so many coincidences that lead you to think that it wasn't a coincidence.
Yeah, you see, the puzzle of why there's carbon monoxide in that blood sample intrigues me. Yeah. The rest of it is of no interest whatsoever, you know, who was in the car. I mean, the fact remains, one person survived, and that was the person with a seatbelt. And it was a whole... I mean, I actually happened to have the identical car to that, the S280. And it's one of the safest cars in the world, right?
But hence why she was in it.
Yeah, and when you look at road crashes, which I've done, there's very rarely one cause. So, for example, if it was in this country, it would never have happened. Why would it never happen? Because there'd even a barrier along those pillars, which is why all our motorway bridge supports have got metal barriers to deflect cars from hitting it. So you don't stop suddenly. As people say, it's not going fast that kills you, it's stopping suddenly, and that's absolutely true. So then the seatbelt issue, we will never know about the alcohol because the evidence is tainted, meaning we don't know what came from where. As I understand it, 4 samples were taken at the mortuary, but 5 arrived at the lab, which is kind of odd. But I don't know if the 5th one was the carbon monoxide one. Right.
So,
but the other thing was, as I understand it, I wasn't there. The alcohol results were in the papers the day before they were actually analysed.
Which again is a bizarre coincidence.
It is curious.
Like explain the carbon monoxide thing to me again. So if that's in the blood, what does it mean?
Carbon monoxide.
Because you hear of that poisoning, right?
Yeah, carbon monoxide is where you get incomplete combustion. So you tend to find it where, in caravans, for example, where they block the vents and things like that, and you're producing lots of carbon monoxide. It should be carbon dioxide, right? So incomplete combustion is where there's not enough oxygen, and so instead of producing carbon dioxide, which despite the current flurry isn't particularly bad for you, but carbon monoxide definitely is, and that's what causes like blue blood and things like that. So and the other problem with carbon monoxide is it adheres to hemoglobin and doesn't let go. So even though you get out into the open, it's still a bit touch and go whether you're going to survive or not.
Yeah.
You never wondered why your blood's blue in your wrist there, but red when it comes out?
Is that because it's got more oxygen in it when it's in the artery rather than the vein?
No, it's just because even in arteries, it's not got that much to make it red. But once you're in the air, that's what turns it bright red rather than.
Is that why when you get like a really deep cut, it's almost black, the blood that comes out prior to it turning red?
I've never noticed that.
I remember I snapped my leg, and there was like it was down to the bone. There was like I essentially was running when I was quite young.
Right.
I hit like a pipe. You know how there's like it went right into my leg. It cracked my leg at the bone. Right. But it also took like a tongue of flesh because it went in.
Yeah.
So I remember standing up and thinking, oh, my leg's really wonky. And it was. And I pulled up my my jeans at the time. I must have been really young, and it was like the blood. I've never seen that color of blood before. It was black blood.
Probably the oxygen couldn't get through the jeans because they were already wet.
So that's why it turns black.
I think I don't know. Yeah.
That's interesting, though, isn't it?
All of biology is interesting.
Have you got a specific case that baffles you still to this day when you look at things and you think this is just odd, apart from obviously the Diana case is weird?
No, because I tend. There's only 2 cases which I think were miscarriages or bad decisions, both in Florida, as it happens. One was a guy called Pablo Ibar.
I thought you were going to say Escobar there.
No. Who was convicted of murdering 3 people way back in the 80s. They've got CCTV for a while. It was on YouTube. It was horrible. Even though it was in black and white. That was one where I thought the prosecution behaved abominably. I mean, it's very like the TV, the slapping things down and all this histrionics. And the other was also in Florida, was a black guy who was shot by the police 4 times. The story was he was in his garage. The police were called. They turn up. The garage door is closing. They claim he pulled a gun on them, and they shot through the door 4 times. Right, one of them hit the head. I mean, he fell where he was. Right, and they had a court case, and the family were awarded $4.
$4?
Right? Yes, because he was regarded as 96% responsible. So I got involved after that, and I was initially asked about the DNA on the gun that he was at, but it was his gun, right? So, and I said, well, there's not much I can do because
It's obviously going to have his.
it's going to get his DNA.
Yeah.
But then they sent me the photographs of the scene, and he's lying in the garage floor with kind of these, is it cargo shorts or something called?
Like
around his
cargos.
knees,
Yeah.
right? And then kind of boxer shorts. But this gun is in the back pocket, and it's like this size. Now, my question was, how do you have the presence of mind after being shot in the head to put the gun in your back pocket? I mean, it's just nonsensical. And a Florida jury, once again, found in favour of the police. And I cannot get my head around that because that guy's family, I mean, that was murder. I'm no doubt. I better not go back to Florida.
But it's true. So if you get shot in the head, the last thing you're thinking of, you're not thinking of anything because you're probably dead. So you're not going to put your gun back in the back pocket.
And I still never have had an explanation for why his trousers are around his knees.
That's bizarre.
It is. So I don't believe the police story for 1 second. I don't think he ever pulled a gun.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether they just panicked thinking he might, but no, their story makes no sense.